Hey guys, so as Legends Festival comes to a close and we start 2023, I've been thinking about the state of the game and what kind of improvements I think could really propel this game forward in the right direction. They currently have the second part of the survey for Legends Festival, so instead of like going through each question on there, I'm just going to use this video as my feedback on what changes I think could be made. So what I've done is I've made a list of 7 changes that I would make to the game if I was, in the position to actually make those changes. Now, of course, I'm not entirely sure what is necessary to make those changes in terms of like, back-end adjustments and actual development time. So, and you guys will see as I go through the list that some of these changes would take tons more work than others. So these might not all be entirely practical, but, just for the sake of discussion and for the video, I'm just going to at least lay them all out there. And of course, there are probably like 25 other things that they could potentially do to improve the game that I'm not going to even talk about in this video. So let me know down below what you guys would want to see them do during 2023 to improve the game from your perspective. Now, as someone who is mainly focused on PvP and the gameplay side of things, this list is mostly going to consist of changes that directly impact PvP and the gameplay side of things. So, for example, one super obvious change that I think they could and should do, like ASAP, like before the next banner comes out, is to increase the value of specifically Legends All-Star banners, in some way, because they are so bad. I think it's actually never worth summoning on those ever. Make it triple rates, make it give you free multis, put better characters in the summoning pool. So those kind of change. I think they actually need to do that because those all-star banners are so bad. But that's not a change I included on this list because, again, I'm just going to be mostly focusing on gameplay aspects. So with that in mind, we're going to go ahead and start with number 1. And also, just forgot to mention this, just to be aware, that I didn't order these in any specific sequence. I just wrote them down as I thought of them. So the order doesn't really have any significance here. So let's go ahead and get started. Number 1. So the first point on my list is probably going to be the most difficult for them to implement, if it's even possible. I don't know if these are all possible to actually do, but this is something that came to my mind after making the regen showcase that you guys might have seen a few days ago now. Just a very tough team. I mean, we could just read these tweets. I think they illustrate my thoughts better than I can say them right now. But I said this is definitely the lowest point of all time for regen. You cannot play the game as a blast team. The team legitimately needs 2 tag-defining characters to be good again, and they both need to be strike-based. And this is really a problem that didn't start like just now. This is a problem that's been slowly building up, I would say, probably since last Legends Festival. If you take a look at like all the major releases throughout this past year, almost all of them have just been strike-based characters. We've had a few blast-based units, right? But you take a look at like all the better characters that have come out since last Legends Festival throughout the course of 2022, and they're 85% of them are strike-based. So what they've done is they've basically created an entire meta environment that is 100% based around strike-based characters, and it just makes it incredibly tough to be a usable character as a blast-based character. That's just the way it's worked. So you come out with a character like Vegeta and Trunks, who, when you look at their kit and when you look at what they're actually doing and what they're capable of doing, I don't think they have a bad kit, right? Like what they're doing on paper is very good. The problem with the character is they don't fit on any team because there's no blast-centric teams that actually are competitive right now. And even if there were blast teams that were competitive, you're going up against these characters who are specifically designed, as pretty much every character that's relevant has blast armor, right, and a strike character. It's just very tough to thrive in this environment. And now, especially that we have Ultra Gogeta Blue, who legitimately has single-handedly power crept the concept of blast cards. it just makes it super tough to even, be used as a blast-based character. So it's a very tough environment for any blast character to be good in. And so this is what I was thinking. I'll just read the tweet that I made here. So I said, I think the best way forward is for them to just completely revamp the way offense and defense works. So my suggestion would be to remove the separation of strike and blast. And what you would do is, instead of having strike attack and blast attack and strike defense and blast defense, what you would do is you would just combine those two stats together. So you would have like HP, attack, and defense, and that's it. You'd have 3 stats instead of 5 stats for the main stats that you see normally. And then let me scroll down a little bit. I said this would create a lot more viable options for teams without you being pigeonholed into choosing one or the other for your team build. There's almost no way they would do this though, as it would just take too much work for them. Yeah, I mean, because this would basically, like, you'd have to go back to every character in the game and pretty much like reappropriate what their stats would be if you're going to combine those things. So for a character like Vegeta and Trunks, right? I'm pretty sure Vegeta and Trunks have a really, really big differential in terms of their strike and blast stat, right? So they're one of these characters, even if they're not, let's just pretend. Because like most blast characters are not like a character that can also do strike attack. Like they're typically one-dimensional in terms of their offensive stat. I can check this on my phone right now, but I'll just start talking about this anyway. So basically the way this would work is you would take a character, let's just take Trunks and Vegeta in. I'm actually gonna look them up right now. Trunks and Vegeta. Yeah, so my 14-star Trunks and Vegeta, 262,000 blast attack and 248,000 strike attack. So this is not a character where you can just all of a sudden be like, oh well, Future is a much better strike-based team. And even though they're more of a blast character, I'm just going to go ahead and build them strike-based, and hopefully it'll work. That's not going to work. It's not going to work for multiple reasons. Number one, they have like a terrible strike attack stat. And then number two, they are actually a character that specifically is drawing blast cards and are getting way more of a benefit from using blast cards. So that's just not going to work for them. And so what my suggestion would do is you would basically just create an average of those two stats, and that would be their offense stat, their quote-unquote attack stat. And you do the same thing for defense. But the problem, on the back end for the dev team for this would be you pretty much would have to do that for every single character in the game, and then also for equipment as well. So it becomes a very tedious process that I'm not sure if they're willing to invest the time into. But I think it would, if they did bite the bullet and just, sunk a ton of time into actually making something like this work, it would create a lot more opportunities for characters that don't normally see play to actually be included on teams, right? So let's just, for example, say that for January, they release an LF character. Let's just say it's Rival Universe, the team that just hasn't seen play since like 2 years ago or something, right? Rival Universe just has never gotten any buffs in like the past like 12 months or something. And so all of a sudden they release this Rival Universe character that's like, I don't know, some blast-based character. It's like not going to see play anywhere. If you make this change, instead of the blast-based character not really seeing play anywhere, you could at least throw them on the leader slot of a team, and they'll be able to fit on pretty much any team, because you don't have to worry about a character like that, not being able to be included on a strike-based team if they're blast-based, because there's no quote-unquote being based on one stat or the other anymore. It would just be the same stat. It would be attack, right? So you wouldn't have to worry about teams being strike or blast-based. They would just be, you put the character on your team, whoever you think is going to perform the best. You're not like dividing these teams based on, oh, well, Future strike based, that means I don't really want to include blast based characters, or oh, LOE is blast based, that means Cooler's not going to perform as well on LOE, even though he's supposed to be an LOE character. That problem with the solution that I've created here, I think, would go away, but it would just be a massive undertaking for them to do this, because of how much work would go into like recreating all these equipments and all these stats for these characters. And also Z abilities as well, right? Z abilities are obviously, they buff, one of the 5 stats: HP, strike attack, strike defense, blast attack, blast defense, and then sometimes they have other stuff in there like crit and stuff like that. But they would have to also go back and adjust those as well. So it would take a lot of work to do, but I think for the health of the future of the game, like, this is something that they should do, just because it would create a lot more opportunities for these characters to see play on teams that they wouldn't normally be able to. So that's number 1 for me. Again, basically just the combination of the strike and blast stats for offense and defense. I think it would help the game, but you guys let me know if you disagree. Let's move on to number 2. All right, so the second change on the list that I've proposed is going to be not as big of a change anywhere even close to number 1, but it's one of those things where it's like, it would be nice if they did this, and that's the buff bar consolidation. So I'm going to be taking in Gogeta Blue into just a regular event so I can illustrate what I mean by this. So as you guys know, the buff bar in this game works where whenever your enemy gets a buff or a debuff, you'll be able to see what buffs or debuffs are afflicted on them by looking at their buff bar. And let me just turn off the 3 times speed here in a second. All right, so you can see I have one card draw speed debuff there. Every time, here's the main problem for me. Every time we use a card here, we're getting the same instance of that special move cost buff, right? And so the problem with Legends is you can only have 6 buffs or debuffs that are visible on your buff bar at any one time. And so what's happened because of how many, how much effects these characters are doing in that, right? Like just due to power creep, it's inevitable, right? Characters are gonna be inflicting and debuffing like a million things, right? So it's just par for the course of what's gonna happen with this game. But if that's going to happen, which is fine, you got to also adjust the buff bar, because the problem now is we can only see 6 buffs or debuffs at any one time. And so what happens is buffs that you would want to see get pushed off of your buff bar, so you actually can't tell what your character or the enemy is afflicted with at the time. And the reason why that's such a big problem is because of how important the concept of special cover change nullification has become. Special cover change nullification is probably this. Look at Broly's buff bar. Like, he has the same instance of a buff like 4 times. But yeah, special cover change nullification is probably one of the strongest mechanics in the game right now, if not the single strongest mechanic in the game in terms of just a straight up buff effect. But I think the way most people, at least the way that I am able to keep track of special cover change on the enemy, so like Beast Gohan has it, Gogeta Blue has it, all these good characters have it, right? Is you look at their buff bar and you're able to tell that the buff is on them. Like, see that this one right here that I'm tapping right now? That like little person with the X next to them, and now, oh look, it went away. It went away because the Broly has too many buffs to be able to see it anymore. And so the reason why that's important is because that's the only way you really have to keep track of that buff. And so because Broly has too many buffs to even see that effect anymore, it becomes impossible to keep track of. And so my solution for this problem is just to figure out some way to consolidate the buffs and debuffs that are visible on the enemy, or even on you at any one time, because it also helps for you to see your own buffs, right? Like, if I want to see my cover change nullification on my Gogeta, I have to look at his buff bar. So that is something that I wish they would do. I don't know how they would exactly do it. Maybe they, like, there's the enemy Gogeta has right now, that little guy with the X next to it, that's the cover change nullification buff. So on characters that just gain a million buffs like that Broly just had, okay, now it's gone, so it doesn't have it anymore. But it becomes very, very tough, if almost impossible, to tell when enemies actually have the buff applied anymore. So I don't know, maybe either you make look at Gogeta's buffs, my Gogeta on the bottom. I have the same buff effect applied 6 times. Why is that not just like one effect and then you have like a number 6 next to it? Wouldn't that be better? Like, am I crazy? That's kind of insane. They haven't even done that yet. But at least a small change like that, I think, actually could go a long way in reducing people's like confusion with how these effects work. So that's definitely something I wish they would do. But that's going to be number 2 on the list, just consolidating the buff bar and making it easier for people to tell when certain buffs are applied on your character. I don't think it's that out of the, it's like not something that's too hard to do. So I would expect them to maybe look into this, because it's becoming more important than ever with how many effects these characters are doing to themselves and the enemies. So number 3 on my list is actually the only thing on this list that has nothing to do with like the actual gameplay aspect of the game, but it's something that I think I've mentioned this pretty much since the game came out. And it's something that a lot of people have been talking about as well. And that is the exchange shops. So I'm not even going to say anything, and I'm just going to scroll through this list. These are all the exchange shops that exist in the game. You guys tell me if you think this is confusing or not for new players. If you're a brand new player who just downloaded the game and installed this game, and you open this menu, do you guys think this is like good to look at? Like, someone's going to open this menu and look at this, and they're going to uninstall the game. Look how many shops there are. And I think this is even lower than like the height of Legends Festival. I think there's even more shops in here at one point. So again, it would just be consolidating all these shops. Like, for example, why are these all different? Like, we have all these exchange shops for like these free-to-play characters. We start from Metal Cooler, 18, Super Saiyan Gogeta, the Blue Goku Vegeta, Frieza, Jacket Goku, Cell, Rose. These should all be one shop. Like, why are these different? They should all be the same shops. That's how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 exchange shops that could just be consolidated into one. You just pick a name for it, and then you just combine it into one shop, right? Maybe you could even move it down here, make a separate like place for that. The recycle center can be expanded and improved. We have all these Legends Road shops that could all be consolidated into one. There's 4 right here. I know there's more characters than just these, right? So those could also be included. Yeah, here's the Piccolo one. Here's the Gohan. Yes, there's actually 6. Just combine all these Legends Road exchange shops into one as well. That's 6 gone. The hyperdimensional co-op one is fine. This one is fine. So I mean, some of them are fine as is, but I mean, there's just different ones you can consolidate. The adventure ones. Sometimes when you have like overlapping adventure campaigns going up at the same time, you can have multiple of these ones up. Just make a separate one that's specifically an adventure exchange shop. You don't have to like specify what it's for. Just have one that says adventure, and then you click on it, and then you can see the different types of adventure exchange material you can exchange in there. Again, same thing for PvP. You just create a separate PvP one, and then every single PvP season that has this, you just add it to that sub menu. It's that simple. Legends Battle Royale. I mean, if they're going to continue doing Legends Battle Royale like this is fine. Oh, here's another one. This one just going to get added to this, the list of the 9 over here. So that becomes what, number 10? So that one goes over there. Legends Tuesday is fine because that's just for the Legends Festival, I guess. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here. And then I think for like these summon coin ones, you can just combine those into one as well. So like if I open the summon coin one, like you could just have like 2 tabs at the top here. One is for, you know, the whatever this banner is called. Like it's so small I can't even see it. Parental Bonds Across Time. So you have a Parental Bonds Across Time tab, and then you have, what is it, the Saviors of the Galaxy on the other one. That's the Super Saiyan 4 one. Yeah, Saviors of the... So you just combine those and have tabs there. And I think just by doing those small changes, you could just create a much more clean looking layout for this. Another option they could do is they could just combine a lot of these currencies into one, like not one currency for everything, but like they could combine a lot of these currencies together into just like their own currency. Like this is still, to me, the stupidest change they've made in Legends Festival is creating this Z2 medal. If they're gonna do that, at least give us some kind of exchange rate where we can convert the Z medals to Z2 medals, whether it's gonna be 50 to 1 or whatever it is, right? And then what you do is you just delete Z medals. Like Z medals are actually just obsolete. Just like, you know what? Just create, like, combine, at least just combine these 2 shops together, right? Why is there a separate Z2 metal shop and a Z metal shop? Just make them one thing, call it Z metal, and then you click on this, and then there's going to be a separate tab for Z2 metals, and then it's just all under one thing. It's just way better. Sparking metals, sure. Equipment metals. Honestly, equipment metals, you can just... Platinum coins are kind of just extra currency. Like, do we need to have platinum coins? Why can't you just give us the currency normally? Like, I feel like a lot of these currency items are just like irrelevant. Like, when was the last time rare metals were actually good? It's only when you're getting these, and when you're getting these souls for the free ultras, which they haven't given one to us in like what, a year or something. So yeah, I don't know. It's just, this is not good to look at, and it's going to confuse a lot of new players. And I definitely think they could change this, because this is insane. Look how many currency items are in the game, and it's like you can just go to the item list. So we have metal and exchange items. Look at this. Look at that. Like, is a new player expected to look at this and be like, oh man, like this is awesome? Like, what is any of this? I don't know. I don't think this is like as pressing of a change that needs to happen as much as like every other thing on this list. This is probably the lowest priority change, but it's honestly such an easy thing to do that I'm surprised they have gone this long without like overhauling how this menu looks, because it's just really, really bad. So I'm actually going to jump into try mode for this one. This is going to be number 4 on the list, and I don't want to call this just fix lag, because that's like such an easy thing to say. It's like, oh, we'll just fix the lag in the game, where I don't think they could just fix the lag. I think if they could just fix it, they would have done it, right? So what I'm going to be calling this point is overhauling the way movement works, which definitely sounds like a really big thing that they would need to change. And again, I'm not even sure this is possible for them to change this, but I think when most people think of lag in this game, at least when I think of lag in this game, it mostly applies to when you're moving between different like like areas of the map. So there's 3 areas of the map. There's close range right here, there's medium range or mid range, and then there's long range or full screen is what people call this, like full screen strike. Yeah, it's funny. So when a match is lagging, the time it takes, so what's the best way to explain this? I guess when you have a smooth connection with somebody, this is obviously for PvP. When you have a smooth connection with somebody, you, after playing a certain amount of matches and playing the game for a certain amount of time, you know how long you have to like move your, swipe your screen to go from one spot on the map to the other spot. So I go like this, I'm in mid range. I go like this, I'm in close range. And it takes the same amount of time every single time to get from one spot to the other. But when the game is lagging, it obviously takes a longer amount of time for you to get from one spot to the other because of how long it takes the game to register that you're inputting a command, just due to how the connection is, right? We're gonna run out of time. So the main issue I've found with lag in this game is when you're trying to move from different positions on the map. So again, like I just said, you're used to it taking the same amount of time to go from one position to the other. It's this, it's this, it's this, it's this every time. But when you're lagging, it can be 1.5 to 2 times the amount of time where you actually have to input the command to go back or forward for the game to actually recognize that you're moving back or forward. And that heavily impacts the way that you play, because the way the game works is you're inputting these commands, but the commands are not instantly being applied because you have to input the commands and then the game reads the commands, and then the server on their whatever end the server is on, the server reads the commands and then it says, okay, sure. And then it puts the commands in, and that's when you see the actual action take place on the screen. So to actually play the game, like I'm inputting a sidestep. The sidestep doesn't happen the second I swipe the screen. There's like a very, very small delay of time before it happens. And so, for example, if an enemy stop time effects and catches you in a sidestep, that's the reason why you can't instantly sidestep again, is because you're caught in the action. And that's an action that you already input, even though it didn't technically appear on the screen yet. So that's the way the game works. And I think, I guess, I'm just trying to think of a way, like that's the premise of the problem, is lagging, but the problem being that like it's very hard to tell when the game is lagging when you're going to be able to move from position A to position B because of the irregular amount of time it takes for you to actually get there. So I guess the solution I would have is for them to change the way that the game recognizes when you're moving to a different spot on the map. I don't know how they would do that, but I guess one thing they could do is they could change the way that the inputs are read by the server, if that's possible. Again, I don't even think they use their own servers. I think they use like some kind of Google service for this. But so for example, like I just explained, you go like this to move back, you go like this to move forward. What if instead of, I'm even trying to think about how I would word this. Instead of like lag being implemented right here, so like you wouldn't be able to tell when you're moving up or back, your character would always be able to move freely like this, even if there is lag, but it's not officially confirmed, quote unquote confirmed, by the server until the server reads it. But on your screen, you at least will be moving up or down. So you don't have to, I guess, quote unquote, guess when your character's actually going to be moving up. Because a lot of times, you guys will see this in my showcases, I want to approach and then go for a strike. But because there's lag, like I'm used to the same amount of time where my character's moving up like this, but if there's lag, it'll sometimes like take like a long time. So like pretend this is moving up, like I'll go like this for like 2 seconds straight, but my character will not move up. And so because I think that, you know, they will be moving up and it normally does take that long, I'll have pressed the strike card already. And what happens is, because of the lag, instead of my character moving up and then clicking the strike card, it will have turned into a mid-range strike. So my proposal is let the character move up even if it's lagging, so that the server, at least if it needs to take a second or two or whatever to confirm the movement, it will at least have registered my character moving up, and then I can play the game normally. I guess that's the solution I would make, but I don't. This is a tough one because I don't know how like the back end works, and I don't think anybody does unless you actually work for them. But that's the best way I can like sort of describe it, and the solution that I would give for that problem. So like, again, point number 4, overhauling the way movement works. Just my way of combating lag in this game, even though I don't think it's very likely to be fixed. That's the change I would at least look into doing. So number 5 on the list, and this is literally what I wrote on my notepad: quick attack sucks. So at this point, we've had a decent amount of time to play with the quick attack mechanic. I think it was implemented just a few months after the anniversary. So I think it's fair to say we've had the quick attack mechanic in the game for like 5 to 6 months at this point. So maybe even 6 to 7. So we've had ample time to use quick attack and see its impact on the game. And so I have a tweet thread here that I made that I think summarizes this pretty well again. So I'm just going to go ahead and read this and then I'll expand on this. So this person basically asked me, are blast teams as a concept just dead in the water now because of Gogeta? And my response is, it's not just Gogeta. I mean, this also, I guess, ties into my point number 1 about blast characters being very tough to use. So my response is, it's not just Gogeta. The quick attack update permanently crippled blast-based units / teams. And to expand on that quickly, it's just like, if you go for a quick attack, if somebody quick attacks against you as a blast character, it's just very tough because you really don't want to blast from mid-range against all these characters that have blast armor. And like, again, like most good units in the game have blast armor. It's just the way that they've been, designing these characters. So instead of being able to just sit at long range and use your blast cards to like match the enemy's blast cards or watch them sidestep and then go for a blast, which is typically the way that you almost always initiate with a blast character. It's just very tough, much harder to initiate with a blast character than it is with a strike character. With these quick attacks and the way that they close the gap super quickly, it just becomes a lot harder to actually start combos with blast characters. So that's number 1. But I think when you actually get into like the top tier PvP, I'll just continue reading. After having an extensive amount of time to actually test out quick dash / attack and see its effect on the game, it hardly impacted the advantage to playing passive at all, which is the main reason why they implemented quick attack into the game in the first place. It was a direct tool to be used against people playing passively to punish you from doing nothing and sitting at long range, right? That was the whole premise of why they implemented this mechanic. A lot of the time, new characters either gain some kind of buff for themselves, debuff the enemy, and or heal off the damage they take whenever they're hit with a quick attack. So quick attacking often ends up doing absolutely nothing. So for example, a character like Red Pan, if you attack Red Pan, she's buffing the whole team and she's healing the whole team, right? If you attack, if you quick attack Future Gohan, he's healing the whole team and he's buffing the whole team. If you quick attack Zenkai, LF, Rose, Goku Black, he's giving you a debuff for cost, right? And there's a lot of characters that have these effects where, like, Ultra Super Vegito gets quick attacked. He's healing off the damage. Actually, he's healing more damage. He's healing for more HP than you actually did damage to him with a quick attack. So it's actually helping him if you quick attack. So with a lot of these characters that have all these healing effects and debuffing effects and buff effects, a lot of the time you actually do want to get quick attack. So this is what I said. There are a lot of instances where you actually want to get quick attack to help buy some more time to switch, etc. The damage is pathetic. And the risk of you getting caught with a blast or strike from the enemy at the same time as you doing the quick attack makes it not worth it. Once you hit the top 1000 of PvP and play people who know what they're doing, you will almost never see quick attack used. 80% of the match is played at long range, waiting for the other person to make a mistake. Very boring, but it's the playstyle resulting in the highest win rate. If you guys watch, I don't know if this video is going to go up before or after the next God rank grind video I do, but obviously that's, a high level PvP gameplay. And if you actually watch that video, there are very few instances where very good players will quick attack, just because there's too much of a risk associated with it. Again, like I said, the damage is not good, and if you go for a quick attack and the enemy decides to go for a strike or a blast at the same time, you just basically lose the match almost. Because you can't cancel your quick attack. Like, you're in the middle of the animation, you get hit by a strike or blast, boom, it's over. And it doesn't provide enough of a benefit. Like, sure, you can close the gap with it, but it doesn't provide enough of a benefit to where I think it's even worth doing, because at least at long range, you have enough time to see what your enemy's doing before you can react, and you can make a more well-informed play based off of what your enemy's doing, because you have more time and information to react to what they're doing. So I think overall, the point I'm making with this thread and this point in my list is that I just don't think quick attack was successful in deterring the passive playstyle. Playing passively is certainly, without a doubt, still a much more advantageous way of playing the game than being aggressive and like using quick attack. So I think if their main intention behind implementing quick attack into the game was to deter the passive playstyle, they failed completely. I remember they made one adjustment and they changed the way that quick attack did damage, because it used to do way more damage. If you guys go back and pull up my first video of when quick attack just came out, the damage that it was doing was ridiculous. I remember trying to do a challenge video where I was going to be only using quick attack to win. And I actually almost won a few times. I think I actually did win one. So the quick attack was extremely powerful when it came out. And then for whatever reason, they decided it was probably just too good. And then they nerfed the damage of it. But I mean, I'll sit at long range all day long with my Ultra Super Vegito if they're going to keep quick attacking me, with my Red Pan if they're going to keep quick attacking me, with my Future Gohan if they're going to keep quick attacking me, because guess what? It actually helps me if they quick attack. After the quick attack is over, I can react what they're doing, whether it's going to be a strike or a blast. I can just rush them or use my blast armor or Ultra Vegito's unique gauge to get the free counter in. So a lot of these newer characters have tools to deal with the effects of quick attack, and I just think it's not effective at all right now. So whether or not they want to basically buff quick attack by making the damage better, or some other way where it's like maybe it like immobilizes the enemy for a second, like I don't know, it would take a lot of this is something that definitely would take a lot of playtesting, I think, to get it right, because this is something that everybody has access to. Every single character can do this. So as a fundamental part of the battle system, this has to be a better mechanic, I think. So that's going to be number 5 on the list. Let's move into number 6. And I'm actually going to stay on this screen as I talk about the number 6 item on the list, because it really does sort of fit into the same category as the quick attack thing that I just talked about. And that number 6 on the list is going to be remove Perfect Vanish. I think when you think about the advantages to playing passively, one of the things you're thinking about is Perfect Vanish. And it's not because you're fighting somebody necessarily who's fishing for Perfect Vanishes. It's because both players, when you're playing at a high level, basically what you're trying to do is, for 85% of the match, both players are trying to avoid getting Perfect Vanished by the other player. That's why people are passive. People are playing passively not because they're trying to PvE somebody, but because they're trying to avoid the other player Perfect Vanishing you. That is basically why this passive gameplay style has become as prevalent as it is I would attribute most of it to Perfect Vanish. If you couldn't get Perfect Vanished, there would be much more of an incentive for people to actually attack the opponent, right? If you're always scared that the opponent is going to Perfect Vanish you, why would you attack, right? Why would you attack when, number 1, you are scared of getting Perfect Vanished, or number 2, you could Perfect Vanish the enemy, right? If the number 1 best offensive strategy in the game is also the number 1 best defensive strategy in the game, why would you use another strategy in the game? There's no answer. The answer is you won't, right? And so I think when they first introduced, I don't know if you guys were playing back then. This was, I think, last August, if you guys were playing. I believe it was the same reveal and stuff that they showed LF Evolution Blue Vegeta. They revealed that they were implementing a special animation for when you get Perfect Vanishes, so people actually know how it works, which basically to me implies that they want this mechanic in the game. I actually could not tell you why they actually want this mechanic in the game. It is counterintuitive to this game being the way they want it to be. And the reason why it makes no sense to me is because of the fact that they even implemented quick attack into the game. I guess the premise behind them implementing quick attack into the game was to reduce the amount of passive play in the game. But at the same time, they're basically promoting passive play by giving quick attack the animation. So both of those changes are completely counterintuitive to one another. They're basically incentivizing people to play passively by giving, a much more visible indicator of when you're Perfect Vanishing somebody, but then they're also going to be disincentivizing passive play by giving people the quick attack mechanic. So it doesn't line up. Like, it doesn't make sense. Like, both of those things are counterintuitive to one another. You don't, like, they're both incentivizing different things that are completely opposite of each other. So I'm not really sure what their plan is to address this, if they ever address it, but I think quick attack, or no, sorry, not quick attack. I think Perfect Vanish is the number one biggest contributor to why passive play is as prevalent as it is and why it's as good as it is. You get Perfect Vanished, a lot of the times that's going to result in you getting Rising Rush, that's going to result in you getting hit by like a 60 card combo, and then them getting enough cards to use a Rising Rush, or they just get too much of an advantage from that combo and then you just end up getting snowballed and losing the match. Whereas if there wasn't Perfect Vanish in the game, you at least have a chance to retaliate. If the enemy vanishes you, you can sort of like, go for taps, you can sidestep, you can switch, you can use your main ability, use a green card. There's a million things you can do. Whereas you get quick attacked, whereas you get Perfect Vanished, and then you just sit there and take a combo because you can't react to it, right? So I really don't like this mechanic at all, and I think this is definitely one of the biggest things I think they should change. And this is something that's, I think, a lot of people have been very vocal about for a long time. So I'm surprised they haven't even like talked about this, but I personally don't see any merit in this existing. Like, I don't think there's any benefit to Perfect Vanish existing in the game. And again, this is something that would take play testing. Like maybe like there's no Perfect Vanish from long range, but maybe at close range there still is Perfect Vanish. Like they could do things like that. But I think at the very least, like 85% of the match being played at long range because of the degree of advantage you have by playing passively is 100% due to the existence of Perfect Vanish. So that's going to be number 6 on the list. Let's move on to the final item, which is going to be number 7. All right, I'm just going to play one of my recent matches here on a replay while I talk about this point number 7, which is just the Rising Rush, right? You guys knew this was going to come up at some point in this video. So in terms of like how I would change Rising Rush, I mean, there's a lot of different convoluted things you could do where it's like, I've seen people suggest wild stuff like, what if you attacking gives your opponent Dragon Balls and stuff like that, which could be interesting, I guess. But I mean, there's a very simple way they fix Rising Rush, and that way is each player gets 1 Rising Rush each match, and there's no guessing. Boom, it's fixed. I think that's a very fair way of addressing the Rising Rush issue. I think the way it is right now is it's just it determines matches way too heavily. Right? Matches are way too heavily determined by whether or not Rising Rush is guessed or not guessed, or if you hit with it or if you don't hit with it. So the way I would change it, it's not that difficult to understand. It's 1 per match. So the first Rising Rush you use, boom, that's it. You're not able to use the second one. And assuming you land that Rising Rush, there's no guessing. It just goes through every time. I think that's the most fair way I could picture it being changed to, right? I think it's fair, right? If you miss the Rising Rush, then you have 1 in the game. Like that's tough. Like you can't use it again. If you use, let's just say, you just go for a long range Rising Rush and the enemy vanishes it, like that's, well, you wasted it, right? I think it's fair. I think that's the change I'd make. It's not tough to understand. It's not anything too crazy. To me, it seems like the most fair way to do it, and it seems like the most easy to understand change that I'd make to this. So, just to recap quickly the 7 points that we talked about. So just to quickly recap the 7 points, this is literally where I wrote them down. Like this is my notepad on my phone here. Number 1 is going to be the combination of strike and blast attack and defense for the stat spread. Number 2 is going to be the buff bar consolidation. Number 3 would be consolidation of exchange shops. Number 4 is going to be the overhaul of movement, which I guess in parentheses, the way I put it was moving forward and backward and quick attacking. Oh yeah, I forgot to actually mention that in the actual list. But if you guys have noticed, if you cover change somebody and then you try and go for a quick attack, it like doesn't work a lot of times. Like your character's like stuck. It feels like your character can't move for like a set period of time after you cover change somebody. I forgot to mention that in the point number 4, but I think the main thing that I wanted to get off my chest for point number 4 was just the way that they could change the way movement works, so that even if the game is lagging, you don't have to worry about your character like, not moving up or back depending on how long you're holding down the button for. Number 5 is going to be basically just a buffing of the quick attack mechanic. Number 6 would be the removal of Perfect Vanish. And then number 7 would be an adjustment to how Rising Rush works, which would be 1 per game and there's no guessing. So I think, if they actually even just took like 3 of these points and implemented those into a new battle system update, I think it can make the game a lot more interesting. Obviously, it would require playtesting, and they'd have to make sure everything could actually be done before they start working on this stuff. But these are the 7 changes I think could really improve the game. Hopefully you guys sort of understand where I'm coming from this, and I want to hear what you guys have to say about this as well. Do you agree with these changes, disagree with these changes? Let me know down below, and I'm interested in seeing what you guys have to say about any changes you would make to the game. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I'll see you all in the next one.